Most people think expensive steaks come from better cows. They don't. A tomahawk, a ribeye, and a cowboy steak can sometimes come from almost the exact same section of the animal. The difference is often where the butcher cuts and what happens to the fat. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some steak cuts dominate steakhouses, why others are butcher secrets, and which cuts actually deliver the best flavor. If steak had a king, ribeye would be the strongest contender. Cut from the rib section, ribeye is famous for one thing: marbling. Those thin veins of fat running through the meat slowly melt during cooking, effectively basting the steak from the inside. The result is rich, juicy, intensely beefy flavor. This is why many chefs consider ribeye the ultimate flavor-first steak. But ribeye isn't the most tender steak. That title belongs elsewhere. And that's where most steak debates begin. Filet mignon comes from the tenderloin, a muscle that barely works during the animal's life. Less work means softer muscle fibers. That's why filet mignon feels almost buttery when cooked properly. But tenderness and flavor are not the same thing. Compared to ribeye, filet contains much less fat, and less fat means a milder beef flavor. That's why many high-end steakhouses wrap filet in bacon or serve it with rich sauces. They're adding back some of the flavor nature left out. But if filet is all tenderness and ribeye is all flavor, one steak sits directly in the middle. The New York strip is steakhouse balance. Cut from the short loin, it combines respectable marbling with a firmer texture. Not as rich as ribeye, not as soft as filet. Instead, it delivers what many people think of as the classic steak experience. It grills beautifully, slices cleanly, develops a dark crust without becoming overly fatty. And it's the foundation for two of the most famous steaks ever cut. The T-bone is essentially two steaks sharing the same bone. New York strip on one side, a smaller piece of tenderloin on the other. Two completely different textures in a single steak. Firm and beefy on one side, soft and delicate on the other. The bone also slows heat transfer during cooking, helping both muscles cook more evenly. But there's an even bigger version, and the difference matters more than most people realize. Many people think porterhouse and T-bone are identical. They're not. A porterhouse is cut farther back on the short loin, where the tenderloin section becomes significantly larger. Now you're getting a full strip steak and a substantial fillet attached to the same bone. The name likely traces back to 1814 New York, where a Porter tavern owner named Martin Morrison improvised by cutting an oversized T-bone for a hungry customer, and the name stuck. Today, many porterhouses are designed for sharing, although plenty of people still attempt them alone. For decades, butchers overlooked the flat iron completely. Not because it tasted bad, because nobody knew how to cut it properly. In the late 1990s, the beef industry funded two meat scientists, Chris Calkins of the University of Nebraska and Dwayne Johnson of the University of Florida, and gave them a $1.5 million grant to find an entirely new steak cut. They tested 5,600 muscles, and inside the shoulder, buried beneath a tough seam of connective tissue, they found one of the most tender cuts on the entire animal. Once they figured out how to remove that seam efficiently, the flat iron was born. Surprising marbling, strong beef flavor, excellent value, which is why many chefs quietly consider it one of the best bargains in beef. But another underrated cut has an even stronger cult following. There's only one hanger steak per animal, and for years, butchers often kept it for themselves. That earned it the nickname, the butcher's steak. Hanger comes directly from the diaphragm, the muscle that literally hangs between the rib and loin, which is exactly where its name comes from. The texture is soft. The flavor is intense. Some describe it as almost mineral-like. Others compare its richness to game meat. Either way, it tastes dramatically different from most mainstream steakhouse cuts. And once you've tried it, you'll understand why butchers rarely wanted to give it away. Skirt steak isn't famous because it's tender. It's famous because it absorbs flavor exceptionally well. Its loose muscle structure allows marinades to penetrate quickly, which is exactly why it became essential in Mexican fajitas and grilled dishes throughout Latin America. Cooked hot and fast, skirt develops an incredible crust. But overcook it by even a few minutes, and the texture changes dramatically. Experienced cooks treat it almost like a race against time. And a very similar challenge applies to the next cut, except the secret isn't the heat, it's the knife. Flank steak comes from the abdominal muscles. Lean, dense, packed with beef flavor. The secret isn't how you cook it, it's how you slice it. Flank contains long muscle fibers running in one direction. Cut with the grain, and it feels tough. Slice against the grain, and it transforms completely. This simple technique changes the eating experience more than any seasoning ever could. And that same idea, that location shapes everything, leads directly to one of California's most famous steaks. For decades, much of America barely knew tri-tip existed. Meanwhile, California was building an entire barbecue culture around it. Tri-tip comes from the bottom sirloin and combines lean meat with a flavorful fat cap. Unlike most steaks, it's often cooked whole like a miniature roast. In the 1950s, a Santa Maria butcher named Bob Schutz started cooking it over red oak instead of grinding it for hamburger, and accidentally created a regional obsession. Simple seasoning, red oak smoke, open fire. The result is one of the most underrated steaks in America. But if presentation matters more than practicality, nothing beats what comes next. The tomahawk is arguably the most photographed steak in the world. The meat itself is essentially a ribeye, but that long exposed rib bone, often 15 to 20 centimeters, creates a dramatic appearance that instantly grabs attention. Restaurants love tomahawks because they create theater. Customers love them because they look enormous. But here's the honest truth. That giant bone adds almost no flavor to a steak cooked quickly over high heat. Most of what you're paying for is visual impact, which makes the tomahawk one of the most honest luxury products ever sold. Everyone knows exactly why they're buying it. In Brazil, picanha is royalty. In much of the United States, it remained relatively unknown for decades. Picanha comes from the top sirloin cap and is instantly recognizable because of its thick, fat cap. Unlike ribeye, most of the fat sits on the outside. As it renders, it bastes the meat beneath. Brazilian churrasco restaurants traditionally skewer thick strips into a curved shape before grilling over open flames. Salt, fire, beef, and somehow that's enough. But one overlooked steak may deliver the best value of all. Chuck eye is often called the poor man's ribeye, and that's not an insult, it's a compliment. Cut right next to the ribeye section, chuck eye shares much of the same marbling and flavor. The difference is slightly more connective tissue and a significantly lower price. Many experienced grillers actively seek chuck eye because it delivers an experience surprisingly close to premium steakhouse cuts for a fraction of the cost. And hidden in the sirloin is another cut most people have never heard of. Bavette, also called flap steak, is a favorite among French chefs. It sits somewhere between flank and skirt steak. Loose texture, big flavor, excellent response to high heat. Its open grain structure absorbs marinades beautifully and develops a deep crust during searing. French bistros have relied on bavette for generations because it delivers enormous flavor without premium pricing. Unlike some luxury steaks, Bavette built its reputation almost entirely through taste. Not marketing, not scarcity, just flavor. Which brings us to one final cut that proves understanding the animal matters more than price. Rump steak comes from the rear of the animal, a hard-working muscle group. That extra movement creates leaner meat and a firmer bite, which is exactly why it remains popular in countries like the United Kingdom, Australia, and South Africa. Properly cooked, rump delivers far more flavor than most people expect. Improperly cooked, it becomes a lesson in regret. And that's the fascinating thing about steak. The difference between the most expensive cut and the most underrated one often isn't the cow. It's understanding where the muscle came from, how hard it worked during the animal's life, and what happens the moment heat reaches it. Because two steaks sitting side by side on the same animal can end up tasting like completely different species.